Hi, and welcome to West Explains Best. Today we're going to be doing a Kuta software worksheet tutorial on graphing lines in standard form. Let's jump right into it. Here we have sketch the graph of each line. Now, something you should know about sketching in standard form is that we need to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. It's not necessarily mandatory. It's just probably the easiest way to do it because you just need to find 2 points to make a line, and the 2 easiest points to find are the x and the y-intercept because you're plugging in 0 values. Okay, now if we're looking for the x-intercept, we're looking for anywhere that it touches the x-axis. Now the x-axis is every point where y equals 0. So if we're looking for where the line will cross the x-axis, we need to plug in y equals 0 into our equation. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. We're going to take our equation for x plus, and instead of writing y, I'm going to write 0. So then I plug in 0 for y, and then I solve. So I get 4x equals 0. I divide by 4, I get x equals 0. So I know my x-intercept is 0, so it's going to hit the x-axis. Okay, and actually, because we plugged in 0 for x and 0 for y, this technically is the point. 0 for x, 0, we plug that in for y, 0, 0. So our first point is actually, let me erase this, here. Okay, now y-intercept, what do we do for that? Same deal, okay? Well, not same deal, just the exact opposite. So we have the y-axis here. This is all the points where x equals 0. Okay, the y-intercept is everywhere where x equals 0. So what we need to do now is we need to plug in 0 for x. So we have 4 times, we're going to plug in 0, hold on, plus y equals 0, and then we're going to solve for y. So we plug in 0 for x, and then we solve. So that ends up giving us 0 plus y equals 0, and we get y equals 0. So we get y equals 0, and that's technically the point. 0, we plug that in for x, and then we have 0 for y. Okay, this doesn't normally happen. This only happens when we have it equal to 0 with standard form. Hold on. Pardon me. You know what? You just hate it when you have to sneeze during the middle of a video. Unbelievable. Okay, anyway. Okay, we only have 1 point, so we have no clue which way this line goes. It could go that way, it could go this way. We don't know because we only have 1 point. So we need to find a second point on here. Normally the x-intercept gives us 1 point, the y-intercept gives us a second point. It kind of failed us in this example. Anytime it's going to be equal to 0, it's going to be the case. So what we need to do here is we just need to plug in a value for any point and see what we get, okay? So what I'm going to do here is you can either plug in something for x and y, but you just have to keep track of it. What do I mean by that? Well, if we plug in something, okay, for either x or y, it's going to be a new point. So for example, if I plug in, let's just say 1 for x. Let's keep it simple. Usually you want to pick smaller numbers, so you just need a second point anywhere. So we're going to say x equals 1. So somewhere with this graph, we're going to find out the y value of this point. This is our goal. We want to find that y value. We chose 1. It can be any number. Okay, it could be 100, it could be 10, it could be -20, it could be 1.5. But obviously we're going to pick numbers that are easier to do operations with given the equation that we have. Okay, so now we're going to plug in 1 for x, and we're going to try to find what our y value is. So 4 times 1 plus y equals 0. Then we have 4 plus y equals 0. Minus 4, y equals -4. So now we have our y value. Okay, this is a second point. We had 2 points at 0, 0. That didn't help us. So now we have a second point at 1, -4. And now we see which way our line is going. So I hope you see the value in doing it like that. And clearly I did not study enough in kindergarten for connect the dots. Let me try this again. Okay, don't just connect the dots and then stop at the dot. Make sure you go through both ends of the points and then draw an arrow on either side. Okay, kind of messy. Make sure you have a separate workspace so you can do all this stuff, but I just did it on this. You might do the same thing, but it's my recommendation that you don't. This one's going to be a little bit easier for us. So we have, I like red for x. So same deal, we're going to try to find our x-intercept. We're going to try to find our y-intercept. And then we're going to connect the two dots. And it's not equal to 0, so we won't need to find a second point there. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So we have 10x minus 3, and I'm going to be plugging in 0 for y to find my x-intercept. A way to know or remember, I suppose, if you're going to be plugging in 0 for x or y, is if you're looking for the x-intercept, you need to have x as one of your values in your equation. If you're missing the x, then you're not going to be finding the x-intercept. Okay, so you need the x in there in order to find it. Okay, so we get 10x minus 0 equals negative 15. We get 10x equals negative 15. We divide by 10, divide by 10. This is not ideal. X equals, the common factor is 5. I divide top and bottom by 5, and I get negative 3 over 2. Or x equals, it's easier in decimal form for the coordinate plane. So we get negative 1.5. So we have one point here. That point is negative 1.5 comma 0 because we plugged in 0 for y. Okay. Now we move on to the y-intercept. Hopefully this one won't be as ugly. And what do we do? Okay, so we write 10 minus 3. And notice how I have the y here intact because I'm looking for the y-intercept equals negative 15. So I'm plugging in 0 for x. And now I'm solving for y. So 0 minus 3y equals negative 15. Negative 3y equals negative 15. Divide by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. I get y equals 5. Okay, that's the point y-intercept right here. That's the point 0 comma 5 because I plugged in 0 for x. Now I have 2 points. I don't need to worry about finding another point like I did in the previous problem. So that's great. That's great news for us. And we're just going to connect the dots. This is the hardest part for me. Oh, pretty good. I'm gonna live with it. And there you go. We have 2 examples here. I'm gonna see if there's any. Okay, here's another example I want to talk about. X equals 5. It doesn't look like there's a lot to do, and it looks like we already have our x-intercept. Okay, the x-intercept, we have x equals 5. Notice how there's no y value. What does that mean? This is a special case. Okay, this is a special case because let's go over here to our y-intercept. It's not just a point. A common thing I see here is y equals 5, and they just put a dot. That is wrong, okay? This represents all the values where x equals 5. Another thing I see is, okay, x equals 5, and they put a horizontal line like this. No, because if you look here, we see x equals 2, x equals 6, x equals negative 4. So that line is not accurate. Instead, what we need here is anytime we have x equals a number, it's going to be a vertical line. So we're going to have x equals a number, vertical line. Okay, and this is everywhere x equals 5. Here the point is 5 comma 5. Here the point is 5 comma 3. Here the point is 5 comma 0. What do you notice in common? 5, 5, 5, all for the x values. Here is 5 comma negative 4. 5, still 5, okay? So that's a vertical line. Anytime you have x equals a number, it is a vertical line. Let's see if they have a y. Okay, here we go. Here's a y. These other ones, same deal you're going to do before, x and y intercept for all these problems. This one, keep in mind you have 0, so you're going to have to find a second point besides the origin. Number 9. Okay, so notice how we have a y-intercept. This is kind of like the exact opposite. Here we have a y-intercept, but notice how there's no x. If there's an x-intercept and there's no y, that means it doesn't cross the y-axis. If there is a y-intercept and there's no x, that means it doesn't cross the x-axis. So what does that look like? This is everywhere that y equals 5. Where is y equals 5? That's here. So we need all those points where y equals 5. Okay? So we do a horizontal line like that. We do a horizontal line like that. And this is everywhere that y equals 5. So you notice that this is another special case. Anytime y equals a number, it's a horizontal line. With this information, you should be all set for doing this. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching.